to celebrate this glorious beverage that I adore. Today is World Kombucha Day. A holiday to celebrate. Kombucha that flows like water through our veins or stomach, as the case may be. She removes toxic energy and things that are at the root of what might be creating disease, to bring harmony and nutrients and balance. She takes care of us from the inside out. Hello friends, it is I, Hannah Brahama, the Kombucha Mama, here to celebrate our third annual World Kombucha Day, a holiday invented by my husband Alex. He is such a love, and he is such an important part of the Scoby that is Hannah and Alex, Kombucha Camp, Kombucha Brewers International, the Big Book of Kombucha, the Kombucha Act. That's right. If it has something to do with kombucha, I and Alex probably have some sort of connection to it. And that is because kombucha chose me to be her ambassador. I call it Kombucha Kids Met. We have known each other for over 20 years now. Actually, this is our 20-year anniversary in 2022. I first met kombucha while visiting a friend in college. Actually, he's my friend from college, but I was visiting him in San Francisco. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Chicago area. Went to University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. Shampoo banana in the house. Was a raver girl. Imagine. I'm sure you can imagine raver girl Hannah on the dance floor, hanging with my buddy Jeff. And then Jeff moved to San Francisco. I moved to LA. I had this job that brought me up to SF. So Alex and I went and stayed with Jeff. And he had this amazing apartment in the Mission District in San Francisco back in the early 2020s. And just had a lovely tour of his apartment where he showed me, he had a filter on his shower water. Now, of course, I knew the importance of filtering my drinking water, but it was such an aha moment. Of course, get the chlorine and nasty chemicals off of my skin, and I bet I would feel so much better. My hair would be nicer. And then in the kitchen, they had this crystal in water, and it was pink, and it was like a slurry, and you drink it. It's called Sole, and it was salt water. And I was like, what? I thought salt was really bad for you, and why is it pink? And why would you drink salt water? This is so confusing to me. But I was like, my mind was blown. And of course, now I don't use iodized salt. I use Celtic sea salt. I use pink Himalayan salt. It was such a revelation. And then we went to this room. It was kind of messy. There was a table, and on the table were some jars, and they were covered with cloth, and there was just like this weird stuff floating in there. And I go, what's that? Because that's kombucha. Never heard of it, no idea what it was, never tasted it. We didn't even taste that brew because it was still fermenting. And when I got back to LA, went to the Whole Foods, lo and behold, there was GTs on every store shelf. And I grabbed a ginger ale off the shelf and I cracked it open. I took my first sip. What was your first sip like? You have to tell me. Tell me in the comments, what was your first sip like? Do you even remember your first sip? I feel like most people remember their first sip because kombucha is such an interesting flavor profile, and it's so very different from what most beverages present as. And so when I took my first sip, the angels were singing. Every nerve ending in my body was electrified. Now, did I know that this beverage was going to completely transform my life? No, I had no idea. But in that moment, I had this experience of nutrients in living form, of organic acids, of just like, I just felt all this burbling over. It was so amazing, this feeling inside of me. And that's because I was really sad. I was standard American diet. I was out of college. I was living, with my boyfriend, Alex, now husband and partner. And we just sort of ate microwave food and things in cans. And I cooked a little bit, but it wasn't really part of who I was as a human being. And so when my body took in those acids, now here's the other confession. Part of why I loved it was because I was the pickle juice drinker. I would go into the fridge and I would just slug back, probably because I wasn't getting enough salt and I needed more sour. Now these were of course vinegar pickles because that's what most of the time was sold, but that sour, tangy, yummy flavor. So when I had my first kombucha, it was just like, whoa, this is really good. This is like ginger ale on, not steroids because it's natural, but like it was so much better, right? And so for me, I fell in love with kombucha and I had to have it. Now, some of you might experience that too when you first start drinking kombucha. You're just like this unquenchable thirst because those nutrients, those B vitamins in living form, those organic acids, they're going to all these different parts of your body and nutrifying them and elevating them. And so often, right, Doris? Oh my gosh, me too. I love you. I miss you. It was so exciting. And so when I started incorporating more kombucha in my diet, like so many things changed. My skin cleared up, right? Because we know that the skin being our largest organ, it's communicating with us. It's telling us when things aren't quite right, when things are out of balance. And it shows us literally on our face and on our bodies, whether that's a rash or warts or acne, whatever that might be, your body's there trying to tell you, hey, something on the inside isn't quite right. So my skin cleared up, my digestion improved. I felt so much better. And so, and of course, now I've been drinking kombucha for 20 years. But like a lot of people, my thirst outgrew my budget. I didn't have as much kombucha as I wanted to drink. And so I knew that I could make my own because I'd seen the magic jars. And so I got my own magic jars and kombucha. It was a pickle jar. I think they now sell those in plastic, but it was a pickle jar and I started making kombucha. Now my first batches, of course, did not taste amazing because anytime you first start a recipe, it may or may not turn out great. But with practice and with love and with cultivation and, what's so fun about making kombucha at home is you get in this relationship. So you have a relationship with the tea first, right? I can remember like ripping open. They were individually wrapped tea bags, right? That's kind of normal. Keep them fresh. They're in a box, blah, blah, blah. But you need so much tea to make kombucha that as I'm making this pile of garbage, I'm like, oh, I need to do loose leaf tea. And of course, I'm a big organic girl. I was in environmental club in high school. It was a very, very young club at that time in the early 90s. I graduated in 93. So, I've always been sort of this environmental girl, good for the earth, but clueless about food and recognizing how that participated. Things like skim milk, it was like, well, what's the point? It's like blue water. What is this? And I did not reject. I can't believe it's not butter though. So they did a good job tricking me there. But those are all a long time ago in the past. And as I continued to make kombucha, of course, then I started creating flavors. I looked to my garden. Oh, I have some thyme. Oh, I have this beautiful lemon tree. Oh, strawberries are in season. So I'd go to the farmer's market. I get fruit and herbs and just put them all together and make these delicious magic potions, because that's really what kombucha is. It's a delicious magical potion. And I say magic in the sense that microbes are magic. Magic in the sense that when you watch a really good magician, when you're like totally engrossed in what they're doing, you can't see the mechanism by which they're tricking you, right? Whether it's a question or, something up the sleeve or whatever it might be. When it's really good, you cannot see how it's being done. And so microbes are magic. We cannot see what they're doing, but we can feel how they're making us feel. So kombucha is a magical potion because it has these amazing microbes that go in there and they extract all of the nutrients from the tea, from the sugar, from whatever you're infusing into it, and they create this magical elixir. And so today, being World Kombucha Day, I just wanted to share a little bit out of the kombucha timeline. And so, a long, long time ago, we know that people were fermenting because we found pottery with jars, with shards, and evidence that there was fermentation. Now, we probably won't ever find a Scoby because they are biodegradable, and I highly doubt one would survive from thousands of years ago. Okay, great. Yes, come play piano and let's sing about kombucha. I love this. This would be so much fun. Woo, woo, woo. Inspire creativity. And so then, okay. And so then we have in the Bible, they talk about Ruth's vinegary beverage. That could be kombucha. It could be something else that was fermented. But we also know that in order to make water potable, vinegar or wine, so vinegar van agra, which is bitter wine, which is wine that's just been infested by fruit flies and turned into vinegar, because it turns out that flies, fruit flies, butterflies, they carry acetic acid bacteria on their legs. And so when they land in a liquid, what? They do that. And so, so vinegar and kombucha, these are things that people have been consuming for a really long time. And then we get to 221 BC. This is our mythological origin story for when kombucha came into being. So we know that it's made with tea. Tea was discovered in China thousands of years before this time period. There's a emperor, an agricultural emperor god type called Shenong, and he discovered tea when some leaves of Camellia sinensis, because that's what all tea comes from, a beautiful camellia plant, they fluttered into his glass of boiling water. So 5,000 years ago, humans understood we needed to boil water for safety. We've had a lot of information and intelligence ingrained within us over thousands of years, if not millennia. Oh wait, that is thousands of years. And so these tea leaves got into his water, and as he was drinking, he was like, I have this energy, I feel amazing, this is really great. So of course, tea became very cultivated in China. And so legendarily, Chinese are famous for their tea cultivation. They're famous for fermentation, pao cai, which is the original sauerkraut, if you will. It's the original kimchi, if you will. It was just fermented vegetables, and they had to do that in order to survive the long, cold winters when they didn't have any food of substance. And so they would take various cabbages and just make fermented veggies out of them. And so the combination of cultivating tea, famous for fermentation, and also famous for looking to nature to find solutions to improve health and lengthen life. So originally kombucha was called the tea of immortality. It's called the tea of long life because when people drank it, they felt that it gave them the energy, it gave them the nutrients they needed to live a much longer, healthier life. And so we imagine that Qin Shi Huang, that was his name, Qin, China. So this is where China gets its original name, is from the Qin Shi Huang, went to his imperial court and went to his alchemists and said, I need an elixir. And what they came up with was kombucha. And so that is the mythological origin story of our beverage, because it's really difficult for us to find archival evidence that it's true. But that said, we know that it came from China. We know it's fermented. And then we have another story. So it starts to proliferate. It's kept a secret in the imperial court, but then, slowly it gets out into the world, and it ends up in Silla, the kingdom of Silla. So this is another name for Korea. It's a peninsula near China. And there was a doctor there who heard about an ailing emperor in Japan. So this is 414 AD. And so this Dr. Kombucha, not kombucha, but Kombucha, close, really close. A Korean doctor, he went to Japan to heal this ailing emperor, and he brought kombucha with him. And so now we start to see kombucha being introduced in Japan. And then we hear about Genghis Khan's men, the samurai, right? So there's just all these people who start using kombucha and its amazing healing powers, its amazing energy, and organic acids. Again, all of this is coming from the nutrients of those initial ingredients. So tea, sugar, and maybe at that time they used sorghum or some other type of sugar source. Maybe it was raw honey. Maybe what they made at first was jun. Whatever it was so lovely and delicious that it persists today. Isn't that amazing that we can still drink and eat something that has been around for thousands of years that human beings have loved and enjoyed. And so I just thought I would share that origin story on World Kombucha Day. And so much more has happened since then. And, people went on to research it, to understand it. And really, I think what we're understanding is that almost everything in the world is a Scoby. It's a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, that these organisms come together and they create these more complex life forms, because when we work together, when we work in symbiosis with nature, and I'm talking about everybody, human beings, animals, plants, when we work together, there is this amazing beauty that comes out from nature. Hola, feliz día de kombucha. Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí con ustedes para celebrar nuestro día de kombucha. Woo! Por todo el mundo. Gracias, gracias. So I'm so glad that we're all here celebrating around the globe this amazing culture. And I can't help but be so grateful to Mama Booch, to the Mother Scoby, to that mother energy that has transformed my life in so many ways. So, I started making it at home, and then I took this really great course, and I highly recommend this book to anybody who's sort of searching, what do I do in life? I need to just get more in touch with myself. I took an Artist's Way workshop. This book has been around for a really long time. It's a bestseller. It's just an amazing process whereby you give your inner child, you give your inner creative self space and a voice in order to express itself, herself, himself, however you imagine that. And when I took the Artist's Way at the end of the 12 weeks, I knew I had to teach kombucha. And that's where Kombucha Camp, with a K, because I'm cute and clever and I love languages, was born. And so Kombucha Camp came out of just this love of this culture. No idea. I'd end up president of the trade association, that we'd write this massive book about kombucha, and that even I would sell anything. It was all just a love of the information. And so Kombucha Camp was born. I just wanted to teach people how to make this beverage, to help them get over their fear. Because, when you first meet a Scoby, it can seem a little intimidating. We're not used to handling bacteria and yeast. We're not used to trusting that our food isn't going to potentially harm us unless it's been put into a refrigerator. And that's because we've gotten away from traditional preservation techniques like fermentation to processing, chemicals, and chemical preservatives. And so those products require different storage techniques in order to maintain their healthiness. But with fermented foods and drinks, they have that built in. Like, that is the beauty of the acidity created by the fermentation process and the trace amounts of alcohol. The alcohol is really crucial. The alcohol is like rubbing alcohol on a wound. So, you do that because you want to get rid of any potential pathogens. And that's what alcohol does, is it kills any potential pathogens trying to colonize in your brew. And it's medicinal. So alcohol thins the blood. It makes it easier for you to absorb those nutrients. It relaxes you. And it just makes you feel good. So I truly believe that human beings need alcohol. It's just, what format do we need it in? So, like, for example, human beings have been fermenting flowers and berries and all kinds of things to make what we call small beers. So small beers are basically low alcohol beverages. They made from, wild yeast, usually, whatever's floating around on the air, or what's present on those organisms. Or maybe you'd have a stick that you take from batch to batch, kind of like your mother culture, where all those microbes live within the hollows of the stick. And you would use that to ferment herbs and berries and flowers and all kinds of things. Because when we drink our flowers, that's so good for us. Those essences, plants and herbs have so many nutritional, antiviral, antifungal. They help support our immune system. They help get rid of parasites. They're our buds. Mother Earth has literally populated this planet with all kinds of herbs and things that help support us and keep us healthy. And so kombucha becomes this medium by which we can take this herbal nutrition and enhance its value and make it better for ourselves. And so, then I started blogging about kombucha once the internet was, I was an early adopter. My family had, we had AOL. Before AOL, we had Prodigy. We had an old Franklin computer with, black and orange letters. We'd sit there with books of code and type in games we could make for ourselves. I knew what a syntax error meant because then you'd have to go back in the code and see where you messed up because you didn't copy it right. So So when blogging started to become really popular in '07, I was like, I'm taking my information online, because I would go online and I'd read this information. It was very circular, weren't a lot of references, and there was a lot of fear because people didn't understand it. So just wanted to change that conversation, which is where KombuchaCamp.com came from. And in fact, I'm so excited. We have a facelift for the first time in a decade. We have a new site. So please forgive any bugs or quirks if you're running into those on the site. We are ironing everything out. But in the meantime, we hope you go and check out KombuchaCamp.com. Let us know, do you like the new facelift? Are you able to find everything, all the information you're looking for? We'd love to get your feedback on that. But so then that all led to 2010, which was the kombucha crisis, right? This is when kombucha started being taken off of store shelves. And what happened is when I started blogging is anyone I could find who was making kombucha, I wanted to feature them on my website. I did podcasts, I did outreach. Like, I was just so excited by creating this culture, by bringing people together. I'm very much a connector by my nature. And so I wanted to, just geek out on this with everybody who was doing it. And so naturally I was driven to then seek out who was making kombucha, connect with them, feature them on my site. So then in 2010, when the crisis hit over the alcohol content in kombucha, which anything can anything, right? Like, if you're incredibly sensitive to alcohol, you might get a little bit of that sort of flush feeling. But oftentimes a lot of that comes from the B vitamins in living form, right? If you supplement with B2, B3, niacin, you'll get what's called a niacin flush, where you get this sort of feeling of warmth that comes through you. If you supplement with B12, which a lot of folks need to do if they're not consuming animal products because they can't get those nutrients from there. Kombucha has trace amounts of B12. You get this euphoria. You get this sort of like feeling of like, woo, you're high on nature, you're high on vitamins, you're high on nutrients. And so that's what can happen with kombucha. It's very rarely the alcohol content actually creating any sort of effect in your body, because it's the organic acids present in kombucha literally neutralize it. They create a health benefit to your liver as opposed to a deleterious effect that we get from consuming alcohol. And so since we've been consuming alcohol in these trace raw living forms with the yeast, because yeast is required to make alcohol, and yeast contains all these nutrients. Same with bubbles. Bubbles indicate that nutrients are present, because that means yeast are there creating fermentation. So our desire for bubbles, our desire for alcohol is really rooted in these very nutritious beverages. And so when we pasteurize, when we put sulfites into alcoholic beverages to preserve them, to keep the flavor a certain way so they can be shelf stable, so they don't have to be refrigerated, whatever the reason, we essentially denature them. We take away those nutritious properties. There might still be some residual here or there, but the reality is we take away the bulk of what helps support our bodies, and we turn them into controlled substances. And so alcohol really is a controlled substance, especially when it's in that pasteurized or preserved format, because it's missing the living microbes that give it the nutritional value it's supposed to have. And so what happens is when you start drinking kombucha over time, you literally start to lose your taste for drinking a lot of alcohol. It is it's unreal. It's absolutely true. And you don't even miss it. And in fact, what I love are kombucha cocktails, because then I can have a little antidote with my poison. I get to enjoy the little of the alcohol, the higher alcohol content, knowing that the organic acids are going to help to clean that out of my system quickly. And I'm going to enjoy the benefit of having had that kombucha cocktail. And of course, for those who are eliminating alcohol altogether, kombucha is a great substitute. It has delicious, nuanced flavors. And in fact, we're launching our first ever Kombucha Cup. Okay, so what's Kombucha? Kombucha Cup is a judging tournament that we are doing the judging the first couple days of KombuchaCon. So KombuchaCon conference is the annual conference of KBI, Kombucha Brewers International, which was formed by this whole instance I'm talking about, which is the crisis in 2010. So in 2010, it was discovered that kombucha bottles had trace amounts of alcohol that were higher than the legal allowed limit. Now let's talk about this legal allowed limit. First of all, it's 0.5%, 0.5%. This limit was set during Prohibition. In fact, it was initially set at 2% alcohol by volume, which is what's legal in Mexico and in some other places. In Finland, I want to say it's like 2.7. In Mexico, it's 2%. Those are probably the countries that have the highest alcohol tolerance for non-alcoholic beverages. because, you know, the whole point of prohibition was to eliminate all consumption of alcohol. There were too many pharmacists dispensing cough syrup at the inappropriate amount. So they tightened that number down to 0.5%. So again, none of this is based in science. It's completely based in a puritanical desire to control your behavior. And that made it as a law here in the United States 100 years ago. And so how they eliminated prohibition was in the 1930s. So right, it was untenable. It led to the IRS. People said, hey, tax me instead of the alcohol companies, because that was initially how they were getting their tax money, was by taxing alcohol. They said, okay, tax us as individuals. We'll pay tax. This is the price we're willing to bear to eliminate alcohol from our society. Now, truth be told, it was way overconsumed. There was a lot of abuse happening in families, and there wasn't a lot of support. So it's not to say that this was a completely ill thought of solution. It just didn't take into account the fact that, like, human behavior, and humans have been drinking alcohol since the dawn of time, and you can't really legislate morality. You can't really legislate that type of behavior out of happening. So in the 1930s, scientists are sitting around at Harvard and Yale, they're drinking, and they decide that alcohol that is 4% by volume is not intoxicating. It can't get you drunk. And so what happens is they use this as a premise to start to change how we perceive alcohol. And I can't remember the name of the act, Cullen Dawes or something like this. But basically they sent the rights back to the states, which is why we still have this very verklempt, very old school, messed up alcohol distribution solution in the United States, because it's state by state. And in some states, they still have this, what's called a 3.2 law. So it was called 3.2 by weight, which is equivalent to 4% by volume. So again, we considered alcohol at up to 4% non-intoxicating. And so how is it that we still have this 0.5% limit for non-alcoholic beverages? If 4% is non-intoxicating, what's happening to all this room between 0.5% and 4%? And so kombucha naturally can have 1%, maybe slightly higher than that, depending on how much juice you're putting into it, right? Like if we just drink plain kombucha without any flavorings added, you're probably looking at, you know, under 0.5% up to about 1%, maybe 1.25%. So this is the Kombucha Act. This is the law we're trying to pass as an industry to help correct the laws of man being out of harmony with the laws of nature. And so go to our profile, sign the petition. We want to create a joyful noise on the Hill and let everybody know that people want access to raw living beverages. And so that's what we're trying to do with the Kombucha Act. So in 2010, this crisis hits. It's challenging. It's frustrating for the industry. It's actually when we launched our e-commerce store, so it was a perfect timing there, because it meant now people needed to make kombucha at home, and we were grateful to be able to supply folks who wanted to make that transition. But they say there's no such thing as bad press. So while something like that would normally tank an industry, because kombucha is so literally effective, it literally has such a positive effect on the body, that in fact the numbers soared, especially once it came back to store shelves. And we have continued to see tremendous growth in our category, because when something actually is effective, people can feel that. And that's something that I think a lot of the sort of fake beverages are missing. Yeah, you might get hopped up on synthetic chemicals for a moment, but your body then doesn't feel good later. And when you drink kombucha, not only do you feel good, but you also have this great nutritional support. So when something actually delivers on that health promise, which is what kombucha does, that's why it's so popular, and that's why it continues to be a beverage that people consistently seek out. That said, there's still not enough people who know about kombucha, so that's why we're always educating and helping people understand more about it. So in 2014, Alex and I bring everybody together and create Kombucha Brewers International. So this is the trade association representing all commercial kombucha around the globe. Now, again, I have been nominated by Mother Kombucha to be her ambassador and to protect her. And so for many years, we were in a bit of conflict around the code of practice, because we want to create a healthy boundary. We want to say the health promise of the word kombucha is created by a traditional fermentation process that, yes, contains trace amounts of alcohol. But you have these people who decide to stake a false morality to this law that wasn't rooted in science or nature, and say, well, but the law says we all have to follow the law. And yes, at a certain level, we do all have to follow the law. But that said, there are many laws that people have consistently not followed because they don't make sense. Let's talk about plant medicine, for example. I have been smoking marijuana since I was a teenager, and for a long time, that made me a pothead. It made me feel guilty, and it made me feel bad. Thankfully, it has become legalized in a lot of places, not everywhere, and it should be, because it is a plant medicine that actually can create support. But like anything, use it, abuse it, it's up to you. It's all in how you work with that medicine. So that said, we put loads of people in jail for something that they never should have been put in jail for. And, thankfully I wasn't one of those people. And now we need to help get those people out of jail because we're punishing them for something that actually is a medicinal product. And that's just insane. So hopefully, right, over time in this 21st century, as we're entering the age of Aquarius, as we're reharmonizing with Mother Earth, we're recognizing that in fact, all these things that we've been demonizing because they create financial gain for those in power, and sequester a certain segment of our population so that they can't have their voice be heard, we need to reverse those things. And so that's why I think the Kombucha Act is going to pass, because Mother Nature is on our side and she's advocating for your highest good. And she does it through human beings because we're the ones who can talk and do all the things. But if you sit with your kombucha, if you sit with these medicines, they really create a beneficial effect for you. And I'm not saying anybody should try any one particular plant medicine or another. That said, I think we should honor and respect plant medicines and their gift to us here on this planet. In fact, I think it was just Plant Medicine Day yesterday. And I've used a variety of them to help heal from a lot of different traumas. So that was a little aside, but my point is just that the laws of nature, this planet, it is here to love and support us. And kombucha is a modality through which we can receive that love and healing and that we can share it with other people. And so we're doing a Kombucha Cup because we want to create marketing opportunities for our brands and to help the world to understand. We made a flavor flower. So we have this beautiful, just like in coffee and in beer and wine and spirits, they have these flowers that are wheels. They call them wheels, of course. Being the nature girl, I had to call it a flower. So we have a flavor flower that represents the many different delicious flavors of kombucha. And then there's two other flowers that talk about the less desirable flavors, as well as mouthfeel and things like that. So we're doing Kombucha Cup, we're judging kombuchas, we're creating gold medalists, and we're so excited to be doing that. And then so KombuchaCon, which is coming up at the end of March, I'm so thrilled. We have that. And then we also have a hands-on lab day. So let's say kombucha is one of these industries with a lot of accidental entrepreneurs. So these are people who come from all walks of life. Their story is very similar often in that they had a health challenge. They started drinking kombucha. It healed them. They started making kombucha. Friends and family were like, this is amazing. You have to sell it. And now they've been cajoled into starting a new business. And it is a really great business, but it's a labor of love, emphasis on the labor. There's a lot of physical labor with all the jars and all the bottling and all of this and all of that. It's a very intense occupation, but that said, it's one where you know that you are cultivating love for your community and for other people and healing for them. And so it goes beyond just the, I'm here to sell a widget and make a profit. Okay, great question. Podemos ver las actividades del Congreso en la red. So go to kombuchabrewers.org or KombuchaCon.com. If you want to see specifically the lobbying efforts, that's on kombuchabrewers.org. Click on Research and Advocacy on the lobbying tab. You'll find our petitions, some more information, who's supporting it, all that information. If you're looking for the Congreso de Kombucha, like KombuchaCon, that's at KombuchaCon.com, con with a K, because we're cute and clever over here. So don't forget to K that con. And that's happening at the end of March in Long Beach, California. I'm so excited. It's our first in-person event in a few years, and it's our 8th conference. So we're really excited. Our hands-on lab day is there to teach you how to work with equipment that's going to create a better quality product and a better experience for you, because you may not have that training, that background to know how to produce a beverage, to test it, to make sure you're getting that good quality. Then we have the conference itself, so many educational sessions, we have networking, we have parties, and then we end with a brewery tour. I'm so thrilled. Oh my gosh. We are going to go visit Fermentation Farm. If you have never been there, you are in for a massive treat. They just ranked number 3 out of 100 in the entire United States on the Yelp Best Restaurants to Visit in the country. So we're so thrilled to be going there to enjoy their delicious kombuchas, to eat some of their yummy food, and then we're going to visit Local Roots, which is in just north of San Diego, and they make hard kombucha as well as soft kombucha. So we're in for a huge treat for KombuchaCon. So if you feel the pull, if you feel any desire to become a commercial producer, come to this event. You will meet your people, you will be with your tribe, you will learn all about kombucha. Plus then we have a best in show competition. So not only are we doing Kombucha Cup, which is just based on flavor profile alone to elevate the quality of kombucha in our industry, everybody brings kombucha to the kombucha sampling bar. So at the sampling bar, you get to taste kombuchas from around the world. You get to look at their beautiful labels and all the things. And so we're going to have a best in show where people will be able to vote on all the different kombuchas at the show. Again, creating more marketing opportunities because we want our producers to be proud of the products they're making. We want them to have accolades and awards so that everybody understands that this beverage is sophisticated, it's delicious, and there's a kombucha for you. So no longer is kombucha just the tangy sour punch, which I personally love. There's much softer flavors, there's more introductory flavors, there's low sugar flavors, but this is why the code is so important because again, when you see that word kombucha, you're imagining the health promise of that Scoby, but not everybody's making it the same, and that's okay, right? When we look at juice, we have raw juice, we have pasteurized juice, we have juice from concentrate, and we buy those different types of juices at different times depending on our needs. And different consumers consume those juices based on their needs. And the thing about kombucha is we want everybody drinking kombucha. Imagine if you could get everybody peace on the inside, peace on the outside. What kind of amazing planet would we be on? So that is what I think of. That is what drives me. That is what it's passion, it's love, it's amor. It's because I love humanity. I love this planet. It's literally heaven. It's literally heaven right here on earth. And the only way we're going to stop treating it like a piece of garbage is if we stop treating ourselves like we're a piece of garbage. If we stop putting garbage in our bodies, garbage that gets advertised through us through media, right? So consider the source isn't just the source of your food. It's the source of anything you're consuming. What are you putting in your brain? What are you putting on your eyes? What are you putting in your mouth, right? We're a sponge. We're this like tubular sponge because we're bacteria shaped. We're bacterial sapiens. We can't help but be, reflective of that which comprises our nature. So we're bacteria shaped. We are tubes, and there's a lot of twists and twirls of those tubes on the inside. But when we have the good guys in there, when we have the good bacteria in there, we also then have clarity of mind because we know the vagus nerve is connecting the mind-gut connection, and it doesn't go this way down, it goes this way up, and this is the first brain. And this brain has to be nourished properly for this brain to function properly. So it's all about inside out, inside out. That's what being bacteria powered is all about. And then let's, yes, the skin cream for sure. I love using kombucha on my skin. Those acids, they're not as strong as like what you might get as a chemical acid peel, but they're strong enough that they release the dead skin cells. They leave your skin super soft and very smooth. And then they pull circulation, right? What does circulation do? Well, it brings nutrients. Your blood is your life energy. And so when we bring nutrients to different parts of our body, we're invigorated, we're full, we're engorged with blood, and it feels good. And right? And so that is what we are doing when we drink kombucha. Oh no, when we put it on our face. So we're pulling circulation to the surface of the skin, or put it in your bath, or put it in your foot bath, or it's just tremendous how lovely it is and how nice it makes your skin feel. In fact, we sell a kombucha soap, and we have a recipe for how to make it on our website. So if you want to use kombucha for skincare, just Google spa, Kombucha Spa, you'll find our tips and recipes there. There's lots of great ways to use that kombucha. So I think snout to tail, there's a use for kombucha for everything. And so that's what's really fun about it. But KombuchaCon, World Kombucha Day. So World Kombucha Day was a holiday invented by Alex. He's such a brilliant man. He originally thought of the idea for the launch of our book, the Big Book of Kombucha, which came out in 2016. Right, so we launched the trade association in 2014. Our book comes out 2 years later. We love it. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. People call it the Bible. It's 400 pages. We put over a decade of experience and passion into this book. And it would not see the light of day without Alex. God love that guy. He certainly knows how to get the best out of me. And so we launched our book. And it came out, I'm just so proud of this. It came out on International Women's Day. So March 8th is our book birthday. And I feel like it's such an honor to the mother culture. Mother is what we call a Scoby, that female energy. It's got flow. It's very Taoist in nature. So I'm super grateful that that's how this book came out. And Alex had thought at the time we should create World Kombucha Day. Now, we didn't get a chance to implement it until 2020. So that was our first ever World Kombucha Day. And we're so excited that today we are celebrating again. And so, hashtag World Kombucha Day, look who's out there, see what people are doing, see what they're sharing. Your producers are sharing specials. Your favorite brands are giving away products. So go check out that hashtag, find the commercial kombuchas around you, and go get you some, because today is a day to celebrate and enjoy it. And of course, we should be enjoying it throughout the entire year, but today especially because it is World Kombucha Day. So thank you, friends. So humbly grateful to be a communicator for Kombucha Love to you, and so grateful that you're here watching and enjoying our content. And if this information has moved you, helped you in any way, please feel free to share with anyone else. Like, follow, comment, all the things, because that's what we do here. And let's go out with a song. And let's see, is our person with the piano there? Should we see if they want to join us? Let's see. Who is our piano man or woman? I don't know. We are kombucha campers, keeping our minds and bodies uplifted to create healthy attitudes with kindness, ambition, mindfulness, positivity, equanimity, and respect. So that was Kombucha Campers, each letter. I know, because I just can't help but be the word nerd that I am. But thank you so much, friends. Really love you. Hope you have an awesome day. And drop questions, comments, whatever. We're so excited to support you on your kombucha journey. Mwah! Hana Bruhama, the Kombucha Mama, sending you her love and hugs. Bye, friends.